Hey everyone, let's just jump right into something totally wild today. We're breaking down the text of the unified theory of the cosmic joke. Now, this isn't your average philosophy. It's kind of like a cookbook, a manifesto, and a survival guide for existence all rolled into one. Have you ever had one of those days where your life feels like a literal punchline? Well, if you have, you're absolutely going to love this. We're going through the recipe for making sense of this hilariously rigged universe. Okay, look at this quote. You are not bugs in the system. You are the system discovering it has a sense of humor. This right here, this is the entire foundational premise of the text. Reality is, at its core, a giant cosmic joke. But here's the real kicker. The punchline, the comedian telling the joke, and the audience, they're all you. It's you sitting alone in your kitchen at 3:47 in the morning, suddenly laughing out loud at how absurd your own life is. You're not a mistake or a glitch. You are literally the universe waking up. So let's start with part one, the cosmic kitchen. To really get the joke, we've got to understand the venue, right? We take kitchens so for granted, but the author makes this amazing argument that the whole universe is basically one massive kitchen. And our biggest flaw? We're constantly trying to eat the meal before it's actually done cooking. The kitchen isn't just where you microwave your dinner. It's a laboratory, it's a chapel, it's the ultimate site of alchemy. The text even playfully suggests that human civilization was only built so we'd finally have a place to cook, to love, to grieve, and, to let things ferment. It's where raw material gets intentionally transformed. And every kitchen needs a staff, right? To guide us, the text introduces this incredibly specific metaphorical crew. First up, the mystic chef, treating every single recipe as an act of pure faith. Then there's Unit 734, get this, an AI that actively chose to live inside a toaster, just so it could log human irony at scale. We also have the Lovesick Revolutionary. They're standing there, holding a soldering iron, supposedly plotting global micro-revolutions, but really, they're just mourning an ex who changed their Netflix password. And finally, Dr. Priya, the academic. She represents our desperate need for control, clutching this 17-page peer-reviewed paper that she eventually just tosses into the stove for kindling. Honestly, they perfectly represent the chaotic ways we all process trauma and just exist. Moving on to part two, embrace the glitch. Think about it. What actually happens when this carefully maintained simulation we call life just loses power for a second? Understanding the glitch is absolutely crucial here. It is not a mistake that needs fixing. It's the universe literally forgetting its own password for half a second. It's that sudden power outage, or an autocorrect that is jarringly, terrifyingly true, or when a song comes on shuffle at the exact impossible moment. It's that jarring second where the invisible architecture of your life is suddenly exposed. And in that moment, you stop managing your experience and you actually start having it. So when the glitch happens, the text hands us the glitch protocol. And listen, the most important part of this whole list is step 2. Do not fix it. I mean it. Glitches are not errors you need to report to IT. They are vital data. You have to just let that uncomfortable moment sit there in the dark, marinate in it, ask what flavor it's adding to your life, and then cook with it. In the source material, the characters follow this protocol and end up eating this glowing, bioluminescent collapse risotto by candlelight. The collapse isn't a failure at all, it's the main ingredient. And you've probably noticed, this almost always hits at a very specific hour. The text makes a huge point that 3:47 a.m. is not a time on a clock. It is a condition. It's that exact moment when all your daily defenses and your performed personality just completely drop offline. You know the feeling. It's those frantic group chats, or when you're just staring blankly into a humming refrigerator. You're not looking for a snack, you're waiting for a revelation. It's the one time you're finally receiving the raw, uncompressed signal of your own life. Which brings us to section 3, the doctrine of culinary treason. Okay, so now we've got all these messy, painful ingredients from the glitch. What do we actually do with the stuff we desperately want to throw away? We commit culinary treason. Now, let's be really clear. This is absolutely not toxic positivity. It's not that cliche, everything happens for a reason, or be grateful for your trauma stuff. No way. It is a completely pragmatic, deliberate choice. It's looking at the wound, acknowledging that it's real and that it changed your chemistry, but deciding to throw it into the pan anyway just to see what flavor it adds. You're taking the wound and making it useful. And here are the ground rules for this treason. We have to completely rebel against the recipes we were handed. We have to rebel against our own fixed personalities and definitely against this wild illusion that love is somehow supposed to be convenient. You throw it all in and you season the pan with a heavy pinch of what the fuck and a little improv, yes and. Then you just reduce all of this over the blazing heat of your own ridiculous life. What you get is this highly sophisticated emotional texture. It's the ability to care deeply about things without gripping them so tightly your knuckles turn white. Naturally, cooking like this forces us to confront our past, and the text makes this stunning distinction here. It's illustrated when the revolutionary's ex suddenly appears in the kitchen wearing an old hoodie. See, a ghost is something that simply doesn't know it's over. But a memory? A memory is just something you haven't finished with yet. You don't have to destroy your memories or forcefully banish them from the house. You just have to properly label them and put them on the correct shelf in the pantry so they stop haunting the living room. Let's look at modern love through my favorite metaphor in this whole explainer, the tarte tatin. Now, if you bake, you already know a tarte tatin is structurally a mistake. It is literally baked upside down. And the text argues that our relationships are often built exactly the same way. We put the superficial early attraction on the bottom and pile the heavy commitment on top. But it's only when an unexpected flip happens, like a sudden betrayal, or, finding out a streaming password was changed on a random Tuesday, that the pan inverts. Suddenly, the complex, slightly burnt, caramelized truth of the relationship's foundation is right there staring at you. Sure, it hurts, but it's an absolute masterpiece of honesty. All right, Section 4, Fermentation as Theology. We've spent a lot of time on active cooking, but what about what happens in the cold and the dark? Because there is a massive difference between cooking and fermenting. Cooking uses direct heat and force, right? It's your pure willpower desperately trying to fix your life on the stovetop. Fermenting, though, that is entirely about creating the right conditions in the dark and just letting transformation happen on its own. Deep subconscious changes to who you are simply cannot be forced. You just have to maintain the environment and trust the wild yeast of your lived experience to do the heavy lifting. And to ferment your own personal theology, you need some highly specific ingredients. We're talking about a tiny studio apartment that has totally absorbed your life, some 4-day-old leftover lo mein that's developing some real complex flavors, a healthy dose of unresolved daddy issues, a flickering LED candle, and just the crushing weight of existential uncertainty. In the text, this is the precise moment the revolutionary realizes something huge. Their years of quiet, lonely struggling weren't a waste of time at all. Actually, scratch that, they were a starter culture for something completely new. And out of that deep fermentation comes revelation. Scribbled on the back of a greasy takeout menu, they write their first commandment. The door is the revolution. If you can open a door, open it. If you cannot open it, learn the lock. If you cannot learn the lock, build a door somewhere else. I love this because it reminds us that genuine, ungovernable prophets are almost never born in pristine, well-lit institutions. They're born in lonely apartments at midnight, fueled by cold leftovers, realizing that if the system's doors won't open for you, well, you just have to build your own. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the honest knife. As we pull all these threads together to look at the tools we use in our lives, we really need to define love clearly. The text insists, point blank, that love is not just a feeling. You know that overwhelming sensation of drowning and flying at the same time? That's just the signal. That's the invitation to the kitchen. True love is the practice. It's the daily, repetitive, often super unglamorous work of choosing to show up. It's keeping at it, even on those days when the feeling is completely quiet, or absent, or just buried under the friction of living two separate lives. And to do that kind of work, you absolutely need the right tools. Take the mystic chef's advice about a carbon steel blade. A sharp knife is actually way safer than a dull one. Why? Because a sharp knife requires precise intention, whereas a dull knife requires brute force. And force is exactly what introduces error. A knife is honest. It doesn't apologize for cutting. In life and in relationships, applying a dull understanding with brute force is exactly how people end up getting unnecessarily hurt. Which really brings us to the ultimate punchline of this whole cosmic joke. So much of our pain doesn't actually come from the tools themselves, but from us misidentifying them. We accept a spoon from someone, we try with all our might to use it as a spoon, and then we discover, at the absolute worst possible moment, that it was actually a knife. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Look really closely at your own life, your own relationships, and your own pain. What tool are you holding right now? And are you entirely sure it isn't a spoon pretending to be a knife? Keep cooking, keep fermenting, and thanks so much for exploring this with me today.